YouTube, in today's video, it's the battle of the beast, the top dogs. We have the best of Samsung's offering with the S24 Ultra versus the best of Apple's offering with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Now, I wasn't gonna make this video until later due to like missing AI or Apple Intelligence on the 16 Pro Max, but I'll just do a part 2 later on. There's so many more things that we could talk about in comparison between these two that does not require AI. So let's continue on with the comparison. So the first place where everything starts is the look, the design, and build quality. And I can tell you this, both of these devices are built extremely well. We have the S24 Ultra, frosted glass backing, titanium siding, a plethora of camera hardware, as well as one of the best screens on any smartphone. This beautiful AMOLED panel that pairs along all of this build quality goodness. And then you have the 16 Pro Max, frosted glass back, titanium aluminum siding with a beautiful color accurate OLED panel from Apple. Build quality on these things, regardless of which one you choose, is neck and neck. Top tier quality, Gorilla Glass, and then you got the sapphire crystal glass. All right, so with build quality being so close, let's get into size and dimensions and see what separates these ever so slightly. When we get into the area of weight, we have 227 grams on the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the 232 grams of the S24 Ultra. Not that much of a difference, but the S24 Ultra is slightly heftier on paper, but in hand, everyday use, these things feel exactly the same. But if we break down the dimensions and we get into the height, we have 163 millimeters versus 162.3 millimeters. As far as the width goes, we have 77.6 millimeters versus 79 millimeters. And then as far as thickness goes, we have 8.3 millimeters versus 8.6 millimeters. So wider, more rectangular, sharper corners with the design of the S24 Ultra. That's something some people complain about, which with the iPhone, you have a more rounded corner, which is actually more comfortable in the hand. So shout out to Apple for having a more ergonomic, spearheaded design. But honestly, in between these two, I could use either or with joy as far as a design and build quality and size perspective goes. All right, next up, let's talk about these screens, these OLED panels on both of these devices. Matter of fact, let's lay them side by side and let's talk about the specs. Now on the S24 Ultra, we're rocking a 6.8-inch AMOLED, 120 Hz HDR10, you know, the works, 1440 by 3120 pixels with a nice 505 ppi density. It's actually more dense than the iPhone screen, which we'll get into the specs of that. Corning Gorilla Armor glass and a always on screen. Now when we move over to the iPhone, we have a 6.9-inch screen. The iPhone is actually rocking a larger screen than Samsung this year. Wow. LTPO Super Retina XDR, you know, HDR10, same old thing. Now, it has a nit peak brightness of 2000 nits versus the 2600 nits on the Samsung. It also is a 1320 by 2868 pixel screen, and it has a 460 ppi with the ceramic shield glass along with always on display. Now, I'm gonna be honest, if I play any type of quality video on both of these devices and I put them neck and neck, now I put my Samsung screens on natural. I do not do the vivid selection because that's the more color accurate. The iPhone screens are already set to color accurate, but when you're looking at them neck and neck with the same quality video, honestly, it's up to preference because both of these devices look absolutely amazing to the eye. And you know, it's funny because these things are just so close. It's not even funny. And with the way that Samsung has now reduced their upgrades to be on the same style of Apple with not much changing year after year, it's literally neck and neck, and it's gonna stay that way until one or the other decides to get competitive. And with that being said, the next topic is platform, which is obviously different. You have Apple's, you know, proprietary iOS versus Samsung's One UI on top of Android's 14 software. But also in the internals, things are different. You're talking about the iOS 18 platform with Apple's A18 Pro 3nm chipset on the 16 Pro Max. This is versus Android 14 along with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is a 4nm platform. Now, as far as platform goes, these both are optimized extremely well. All in all, these platforms come down to preference because performance is like neck and neck. One might etch out the other when you look at benchmark, Geekbench, and all that stuff, which doesn't really tell you anything about the user experience. It's just, hey, if we push this to the max, what kind of numbers can we get? Which no one on a typical everyday usage does that type of stuff. So it is null and void. It's just, again, a benchmark, a approximate. So don't get so deep into those because yes, it goes back and forth year after year, but that means nothing. When it comes to the platform, at the end of the day, you know, this is Android, Samsung One UI versus Apple's iOS and your preference. As far as performance goes, they're both top tier flagship devices. They're gonna perform extremely well. I like gaming on both of them. I play COD Mobile on both of these devices and I get the same experience. Smooth as butter. So there is no deciding factor in between the two on platform when it comes to performance for me in between these two devices. Now when it comes to the OS that's on these devices, listen, it's all down to preference because as you guys can see on Android, I'm not even using the One UI. I use Nova Launcher. That's how I have my thing looking as saucy as I do. But with this platform, I'm able to have an individual representation on my device. Now, Apple is trying to do something. It's not the same. Even the fact that you can move your icons now and put them in certain places, when you're doing that, it's annoying because it's magnetic and sometimes you could be trying to move an icon where you want and the other one shift. It still has that same old Apple magnetic layout. Yes, it's giving you a little bit of freedom, but Apple's still being sticky like, nah, player. You get me? They're both neck and neck. I can't pick one over the other. As far as OS, I can't pick one over the other as far as performance. I just want to put that out straight flat and straight to the point. Now, the next area when we start talking, there can be separators because most definitely we're going to talk about these cameras because in these flagships, they spend what? Almost an hour talking about cameras for both of these devices. So let's talk cameras. And the only way to talk about cameras is to use them. Front-facing camera on both of these devices. We got the S24 Ultra here in my left hand, and we have the 16 Pro Max here in my right hand. I am impressed with both of these front-facing cameras. This year, the iPhone front-facing camera impressed me more over the last generations or previous ones because typically the Samsung front-facing camera has always been my favorite front-facing camera for the last couple generations. But when I got the 16 Pro Max and I did the front-facing video for the first test, I was thoroughly impressed with this front-facing camera. Now, I haven't seen these both side by side, so when I get in there and I take a look at that, that's going to be the new determining factor. But I will say that both of these front-facing cameras are extremely impressive and top tier. We got wind blowing right now and all that stuff, so that's a good test for the mic, and we're in beautiful sunlight. Both of these devices have the situation to give them the best production of quality results that they have to offer. So let's switch it over to the rear facing camera. Now before I put the cameras on me, I'm gonna shoot down at my sneaks. As you guys can see, I wasn't lying about me being in the shade and it being direct sunlight. But we have 8K video on the S24 Ultra. Again, I'm giving it its best opportunity to show its best quality versus just whatever the iPhone can shoot on this rear facing camera. But let me know, quality wise, which one is taking the cake. Now, let me flip it to me. Main camera is the best sensor that you can use, the best quality. If you guys don't know, it's no secret that with Samsung's, my biggest gripe and my only gripe is skin tones. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been shooting with the 16 Pro Max. I always talk about skin tones. iPhones haven't been the best at skin tones over the years, but they've been better than Samsung's skin tones. And my first test with the 16 Pro Max, when I put that footage into my video editor in DaVinci Resolve, I was thoroughly impressed with this year's skin tones and just shots, visual quality. So, you know, S24 Ultra, I know it's lacking in that area, but there are things that you can do. You can use pro video mode and take control over the AI stuff. I'm not doing that. Both of these are using their AIs right now because that's the only way to keep it fair. And then you got something called 5x telephoto on both of these devices. You know what I mean? I'm doing my best to like capture as much of the same product, but at the end of the day, you're just gonna have to look at the detail in between these devices up close and let me know which one just has better detail and colors. And unfortunately, when it comes to the ultra wide camera, I can't shoot 8K on the Samsung. It has to go down to 4K. I mean, Apple's been 4K and all of this, but you know, Samsung has 8K. So any area where I can just offer the best on each, I'm going to. But right here on the ultra wides, the playing field is leveled. We got a new 48 megapixel ultra wide on the 16 Pro Max. And then we have what we have on the S24 Ultra, both in 4K. Which one is looking better? Let me know. And just to be clear, when it comes to the camera hardware, do not get caught up in 200 megapixels versus 48 megapixels. That is null and void. It's all about the quality that you get when you shoot what you shoot, whether photo or video, with these two devices. With that being said, hit the comment section down below with no bias and tell me which camera did you feel actually outperformed the other. Now in the next area of connectivity, things are neck and neck yet again. Wi-Fi 7 on both of these devices. Bluetooth 5.3 on both of these devices. But when we talk about how you unlock and access your device, you have a fingerprint sensor versus Face ID. Now, I love Face ID over all of the login methods, but I would never disregard a fingerprint sensor. I do feel like Face ID is top tier and clutch, but it comes at a cost, and that is that pill at the top. The dynamic island has helped the pill not be so, you know, a pill at the top, but when you look at how clean the screen is with just that single camera cutout on the S24 Ultra, the aesthetic is definitely a lot nicer. But, you know, it's a fingerprint entry. And to be honest, it is super fast and it's clutch and it's under panel. So either way, I'm a fan of these devices and how you log into them. But ultimately, there can only be one. And that's why this next topic is the most important topic. And it's the true deciding factor. And that's user experience. When I use my iPhone 16 Pro Max with iOS 18, no Apple intelligence yet, versus when I use my S24 Ultra with my Nova launcher in Android 14 and Galaxy AI. The collective of all of those specs and screen metrics and cameras and OLED and all of that, nits and bits and yeah, all that paper spec stuff. What really matters is, how do I feel when I use this device? Am I satisfied with the fundamentals? Making my phone calls, taking video chats, scrolling social media, snapping selfies, capturing video, precious moments. Dude, like it's so neck and neck at this point. Each ecosystem has reached their plateau. Battery life. Let's talk about it. Battery life. It's surprising because, to be honest, you could watch a ton of battery drain tests, which aren't really mathematical. Everyone uses their device absolutely different. Battery life is 100,000% subjective, but it is so important. And here's the most important thing. I don't care which one of these you pick, you're gonna have top tier battery life. And that's literally the wrap of the subject. That's the end of it. End of discussion. I don't care if you go 16 Pro Max, I don't care if you go S24 Ultra, you're gonna get top tier flagship battery. So that is not the deciding factor when we talk about user experience in between these two devices. So what is? I mean, it's platform, right? It's preference. Preference comes more into play than anything else. I don't care what y'all say. Y'all love to call content creators biased. but your bias, because your bias is what's gonna make you pick one over the other, unless you're like me who jumps in between the two, or you just carry both. I mean, best of both worlds. You know, it's hard to balance without bias. It's hard to pick one over the other without a bias, because, yo, what are the key selling points to going here over there? Freedom, customization, but that's about it, right? I mean, what else is there? Like, I mean, the incremental updates are on both platforms. Both have their own ecosystem. So, you know, if I need a watch, if I need a pair of buds that just sync seamlessly with all of my Samsung products, I can do that. But the same goes with the iPhone. Actually, has an arguably better ecosystem. AirPods, Apple Watches, iPads, and so forth, MacBooks, they're all gonna talk with what Apple calls continuity, which is state of the art. I gotta be honest. If we're comparing ecosystems, it's neck and neck. But remember this, one company had their ecosystem established ahead of the other, years ahead of the other. So it is years ahead of the other. Gonna be arguable because, you know, there's bias. People are gonna be like, oh, this ecosystem is that, da, da, da. Yes, you get washers, dryers, and refrigerators with the Samsung ecosystem. It's more expansive. But the seamlessness and how things dial and work together, it's good. But I'm not gonna lie, the ecosystem experience on the iOS platform or Apple platform with the 16 Pro Max, if you do get like some AirPods and an Apple Watch and iPad, you subject yourself to that invisible wall garden, you're gonna be stuck like glue. I feel like the Samsung one is sticky too, but I see people jump in and out of it quite often. So, user experience, bro. There is no user experience in between these two that's gonna make me pick one over the other, and that's the honest truth. That's not me dodging the smoke, because y'all already know I have a preference. And again, that goes back to bias, and that's what's gonna lean. But if I remove my preference and I literally look at these both subjectively, like honestly, neither can you pick one or the other. Or can you? Pick one down below, because I can't.
I rise and I wake and I gotta go get it. I'm making my bed and it's straight to the digits.
Hey, look, man, I'm being 100% honest when I say I can't pick one over the other, because both of these devices, when it comes down to the fundamental smartphone usage, I mean, they're both plateaued. So they're both bringing what they got, and they're both doing it extremely well. I don't care how you cut it. If you're on one and you can't give props to the other, you're biased. If you're on one and you don't give love to the other, you're biased, especially at this point. I don't care. It's one or the other if you dare. Where you landing? All right. Y'all want me to pick one? Y'all already know where I'm at. Bam! Now shut up and call me apple sheet.
Joke up a joker, say this is acidic, so I take a shot with the lemon and ginger. Look in the mirror like, yeah, I'm that. Look in the mirror like, I'm fitted. Looking outside like the world is all mine. Look in the mirror like, go get it. I gotta get to the scene, I gotta get to the bag now. I can't be chasing on these. They getting they feeling and dragged down. That's why they just crash out.